Welcome to the Dropship Podcast. Today, we're going to answer a question that I believe we got from Joe Bag of Donuts 93 on YouTube. We see this comment all the time. Dropshipping's too competitive. And so we really want an answer. Is dropshipping too competitive in 2023? And of course, on this channel, we're not talking about, your favorite guru standing next to their rented Lambo telling you to find the next hot product on AliExpress. We are talking about dropshipping that has been around for 2 decades or more. High ticket dropshipping, selling products people are already searching for, brands you've definitely heard of, shipping from the country of origin that you are selling in. And it's not too competitive. I'll give it away. Here's the secret. I'll give it away. But there is some complexity here. There is some nuance here, and I'd love to dive in. And where is it too competitive, John?
Yeah, well, where is it too competitive? I think the important, it changes, right? So there are definitely, is the market itself too competitive? No. High ticket drop shipping, if you considered everything, no, it's not too competitive. I actually don't. And look, we look at hundreds of niches and ideas and things for our students, for ourselves, coaching, all sorts of things. Is overall it any more competitive or less competitive? I actually don't think it's changed much in recent years, to be honest. But what we do see is some individual niches, products, whatever you might call it, get more or less competitive. That definitely does happen. So there are sometimes products that everybody just piles into for whatever reason. They get trendy for some reason or something like that. So the classic one that we've talked about on this podcast is electric bikes, right? That as a market is way too competitive, right? That, and when we look at our criteria for selecting niches, markets, however you want to term that, looking at how much competition exists is one of our criteria, right? It's a box that we want to check about a market idea to say, yeah, that's going to be viable for high ticket dropshipping or not. And so there are always going to be some markets where that box is a big cross, right? So e-bikes is one. Infrared saunas at this point in time is one for me, right? A few years ago, it wasn't one of those. But right now, in standing here in early 2023, it is one that I would say, well, there's a little bit too much going on in there for my liking at the moment. But if we look at the overall, the gamut of high ticket dropshipping markets, I would say that things are definitely not too competitive. There are, every day almost, I have a student who sends in an email saying, this is the market that I'm thinking of doing. I want you to verify that for me, which is something we do for our students. We go and we look at it. They've done some research and people are coming up with ideas that I haven't even heard of before. I've had a couple just in the last week and I'm like, holy crap, I've never even thought about that. That's amazing. I love it. Right. And there's, I had a guy on a coaching call last night who's like, I was speaking to a supplier today and they've never done drop shipping before. Right. Nobody else has asked them to do dropshipping before, so they don't even know what margin to give me. So I got to go and talk to them about what my margin's going to be. So holy shit, that's amazing, right? So the opportunity hasn't changed. I think where this question comes from is similarly, on a recent episode, we're talking about returns, right? I think it's one of those things that people use as a reason not to do it sometimes. Everybody's been talking about dropshipping lately. It must be too competitive. So I'm going to use that as a mental reason why I shouldn't do it. It's going to be one of my barriers. And I just think it's not really founded in any evidence at this point in time.
I think there's so much nuance here. Like you said, there are some markets that are getting a bit saturated. E-bikes for sure, way off there. I think infrared saunas is starting to reach that point. Certainly have seen some opportunities SEO there. If anybody's in there, get to work. Standing desks, which I was a part of before with Brian Angel at Standing Destination. Clicks were $7 a click. Good luck being profitable on a $300, $500 standing desk when you're paying $7 a click, right? Again, you're going to have to lean into that SEO. But some of these actually might work in a different country, right? So I hesitate to say, don't do this industry whatsoever. I would say don't do those in America, the ones we just mentioned, but maybe this works in a smaller country in Europe or in South America or in Africa or in New Zealand or Australia. And so there's just so much nuance here. Hey, obviously you're interested in high ticket dropshipping, wondering what you're going to sell. That's usually what people think about long before they ever purchase a course or even get started. John and I want to help you with that. We're running a 5-day challenge. Check it out at dropshipbreakthru.com/5. 5 days. You'll figure out exactly what you're going to sell and you'll be ready to start your high ticket dropshipping journey when you're done. But I want to address there is some headwinds and there are some tailwinds, right? The headwinds are more and more people are becoming aware that you can work online, right? When I was 18, 19, 20, wasn't really a thing, right? 20 years later, a lot of people work online. A lot of people do a bunch of different things. Content creator wasn't even something anyone ever used as a word back then, right? And it's out there now. And so is there more people doing things like this? Of course there is. Is there more people on e-commerce websites in general? Is e-commerce continuing to grow? Of course there is, right? And so there's headwinds and there's tailwinds. I would say the level of competitiveness, if you wanted to put it on a graph, well, like people doing it has gone up. E-commerce has also gone up. So like, I think it's just a flat line. Like it doesn't feel any different to me than it did back then, other than some specific industries that may or may not have been on, gurus lists or on trends lists, things like that, that just everybody hopped into, and those are taken care of. I wouldn't worry about that. Like Jon said, I hear a new idea every week, or at least every month, and I'm shocked every time I hear it. I'm just, how have I not thought of this in 8 to 10 years in this industry? And so, like, I would challenge you: do you have to spend longer than 5 minutes coming up with your idea? Yeah, but you should have done that in the past too, right? And so I would encourage you to go deeper, follow the criteria that Jon and I put forth. You can find that in our challenge too. We offer that in our 5-day challenge. We'd love for you to follow that criteria and then really think through, how do I feel about this niche? Does it pass all the criteria? And I think you're going to come up with more than a few different ideas that meet that criteria and realize that no, dropshipping is not too competitive.
Yeah. I mean, definitely if this is something you're looking to do, like you're sitting there thinking, yeah, I've been thinking about dropshipping for a while, I've been researching, and you've probably got some challenges that you've thrown up for yourself, like, oh, but this, but that, but the other thing that's kind of holding you back. And I know this because we hear from a lot of our listeners, and these are the questions we get asked. And so don't let this be one of those barriers. Let's smash that down for you right now. Dropshipping is not too competitive. If you're talking about high ticket dropshipping, there are tons of opportunities out there right now that with a bit of research in the right way, the right criteria, you could walk straight into.
I think when you look back at the new thing we've been starting, good niche, bad niche, which we need theme. If anyone's listening to this and does audio, you make us some theme music. That'd be great. But if you look back at what we've done, the reason we chose a couple that we have, and honestly, we have a whole list of here's the ones we hear from everyone that we wouldn't recommend our students go into. But if that's all we did on that segment was give you the ones that sucked, boy, that would make you not like dropshipping, right? So we want to sprinkle in some of the ones we've never heard of or we've seen across the internet and make you excited, because there's loads of opportunity out there. But the reality is there are 5, 10, 15 markets that I wouldn't touch with a 30-foot pole. I just don't want to be anywhere near those markets. And again, e-bikes, I think infrared saunas is tipping in there. I think standing desks has already been there. I think there's quite a few more that Jon and I wouldn't recommend. And hopefully we can, on our podcast, tell you, bad niche and stay away from those. And perhaps on a future episode, Jon, we should really break down what are some of the criteria we look for so that you can say, I don't want to be anywhere near some of these things.
Yeah, definitely. Baby products, pet products, lighting. Boy, I learned that one the hard way. There's a few out there, but there are literally hundreds and hundreds of ideas that are not too competitive right now, probably more. But, in the last 6 months, I've at least seen hundreds that are not too competitive, that are there ready for somebody to get in there, do the work, do the right work, and make some money.
And even the ones that don't fit our criteria, there's 100% an angle you could take, an audience you could serve, where it probably would work out. John Murphy's a great example. Go way back in our archives and look for an episode with John Murphy, who made e-bikes work. He took a completely different angle on this, and it actually worked for him. And I think, I wouldn't recommend it in any of the markets that we described, but I think those could probably work too. So do the work. That's it. I think, Jon, you nailed this in that it's a mental barrier. It's a reason to not get started. It's a way to not start and kind of push you into that. Well, if I would have done it, I would have been successful, but it's too competitive, so it's never going to work. It's a line you can use to escape the reality that you could do this. And so don't let this be a hurdle for you. Get started. Go figure out what your products are today. Take our 5-day challenge if that's what you need to do, and go figure out what you're going to sell and start moving forward.